Let's take a breath. Our theme this month has been peace. And my topic today is disciples of love and peace. Disciples of love and peace. Jesus is quoted as saying that they will know that you are my disciples by your love. Your love. This is Christmas Eve. And there's a lot of stuff in the air in this time of season. There's a lot of celebrating of different kinds of things. We've just come out of Hanukkah, very, very powerful time of really celebrating the sustenance of God's provision, that ability to bless what you have and to let that keep multiplying and growing into all needs met. We're just coming out of winter solstice and this embrace of the divine feminine and Mother Earth. Kwanzaa is around the corner, celebrating sacred community. And here in Christmas time, where we celebrate this enlightened Christ consciousness. Sometimes we act like that was Jesus' last name, Jesus Christ. But Christ is a designation, which basically means an anointed one, an enlightened one. And Jesus was extremely clear about the fact that he wasn't the only one who had this. And part of his big message was to try to explain to everybody that we are all sons and daughters of the Most High. We are all inheritors of riches of the kingdom. But how will they know that? They're not going to know it by your deeds. They're not going to know it by all the stuff that you've read. They're not going to know it by your money, and they're not going to know it by your stature, but they're going to know it by your love. Your love. And I'm going to talk for a moment about what that love, in fact, is. When he was asked what were the greatest commandments, once again, it wasn't about ritual. It wasn't about specific things that one had to do that were considered like the sacred activities or ceremonies. When asked, what were the greatest commandments? He says that there are two. And they're deeply intertwined. To love your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and all your might. I mean, that's everything. That's everything. And to love your neighbor as yourself. That these are the two great commandments. We confuse love your neighbor as yourself with the golden rule. The golden rule is wonderful, but it's not the same thing. The golden rule is to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It's about activity. What he's talking about in this love is a beingness. To love your neighbor as though your neighbor is you. Not a do unto others as you would have others do unto you, but love them as though there is no other. Love them as though there is only one. Can you feel that? Because if you loved your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your mind, you wouldn't think other. Because in God there is no otherness. If you really loved God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind, you would feel connected to everything. You'd feel connected to the planet. You'd feel connected to the earth. You would feel connected to living creatures. You would understand that there was a sanctity. You would understand everything as sacred. If you really loved God that much. And if you really loved God that much, you'd love yourself. Listen to what I'm saying. If you really loved God that much, you would love yourself. And if you really love yourself that much, you'd love everybody else. It's all intertwined. It is not separate. By any stretch of the imagination, it is all intertwined. When you go into different kind of spiritual traditions, so often they will teach you a transcendent awareness. When you go into different spiritual traditions, Hinduism or Buddhism or Judaism or Islam or Christianity or any of these, that they don't just start with you as the individual. Okay? Now, recovery programs will do that. Some healing programs will do that. But even with that, they try to help you locate yourself in something bigger than you. Okay? Because in order for you to really love you, you have to be aware of yourself then more than your stuff. You have to see possibilities within yourself. The theme this month has been peace. My topic today is disciples of love and peace. We were talking a couple of weeks ago about one of the Beatitudes. The Beatitudes are the first part of what we call the Sermon on the Mount, the collection of Jesus' teachings. And it's the book of Matthew, chapters 5 through 7, and it starts out in chapter 5 with the Beatitudes, the blessed are they. Blessed are the. And one of them is, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. We talked about that last time. And how this peacemaker is not one who intervenes between warring parties. That this word peacemaker is only found once in Scripture. It's one of these concocted words that Jesus came up with, like daily bread, where it means one who first finds the peace within their own self. And because they have so found the peace within their own self, that they are able to bring about peace because of who they are. Not dipping in, interfering with what's going on between you two, but being something that so vibrates, it impacts you. It says, and they shall be called the children of God. Huios, I speak of this often. It's the same word that's used for Jesus as the Son of God. It means in the likeness and the character. It can be singular, it can be plural, it can be feminine, it can be masculine. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Once again, Jesus is saying, look, we're all sons and daughters of the Most High. And people will know that by how you show up in the world, how you are with other people. How you are with other people. And if you find this peace of God within yourself, people will see you as a son or the daughter of the Most High. Here's a news flash. Most of us think that people get in the way of our spiritual path. People are your spiritual path. People are your spiritual path. People are your path. You're not going to arrive at any kind of place of awareness or enlightenment until you can go through the door of people. I remember my mentor Beckwith saying, it's really easy to meditate and be peaceful next to a babbling brook. Can you be peaceful next to a babbling person? Listen to what I'm saying. People provide the opportunity for you to be who you need to be. They're not getting in the way of you being who you need to be. Their presence is helping to provide the opportunity for you to be what you need to be. The places of forgiveness that you have to go through. The places of compassion, of sharing, of community, of oneness, of presence, of support. All of these are the things that stretch us, and these are the things that bring us closer in our connection with the divine. There are these spirit messages that come. Some of you are familiar with them. Usually they come in the full form of letters. And there's a series out called Letters from the Infinite. There's 2 volumes, The Sacred Yes, Volume 1, and Your Deepest Intent, Volume 2. And I share from time to time another iteration of that, which are definitions. It's an exquisite dictionary that's being produced here or downloaded here. And it's always the same thing, where it gives a formula for spiritual qualities and what we need to do to fully unleash that spiritual quality within ourselves. We already are it. We are the love, we are the peace, we are the joy, the power, the compassion, the healing, the wholeness, the transformation, the courage, the strength, the faith. It's really who we are. We can't get it out there. It's just a question of how much can we identify with it and express it. And what these definitions do is they explain what we have to do, what it is we have to bring to the table, the activity that we have to do that meets what's already here in order to experience it. It isn't that love isn't here, we don't always experience it. It isn't that wealth isn't here, we don't always experience it. We don't always experience the trust. Trust doesn't go anywhere. You're feeling it or you're not, but that doesn't mean that trust left. Okay. So what is it that we need to do so that we can experience it? And I haven't done this before, but I just followed my spirit mind. There are about a dozen of these, and I know some of you are feverish note takers, And there's like 2 or 3 definitions here. I'm going to give them to Barbara. I already know some of you who are going to want this. I'm going to share a couple of these definitions. No, you can pass it out right now. You give Sybil first, because I know she wants it first. Some of you are feverish note takers. So I'm going to give you 2 definitions, and then a third one that helps to define the second one. So this is how Spirit defines love. It's a convergence of energy. And if there aren't enough to go around now, I promise I'll give you some more, afterwards. These qualities are not a when, they're aware. Let that sink in for a second. It's not a when. It's not an occasion when a particular something happens. It's a place in space. It's a where. It can be any place at any time, and it's always going on. It's a where. It says love is where your openness. I'm just going to stop right there. Love is where your openness. You can't love without openness. A lot of us are trying to figure out, well, how to love. How can I do this? Be open. It starts right there. So if you're not bringing the openness, you're never going to experience it. That's what you have to do. You have to bring the openness. It says it's where your openness exemplifies. Ooh, that's a good word. To exemplify. To be an example of something. A disciple. To exemplify. To demonstrate. To show it. So that when people see you, they can see what that represents. That's what it means to exemplify. It says when your openness exemplifies, love is where your openness exemplifies my all-inclusive embrace. Love is where your openness exemplifies my all-inclusive embrace. See, God's love doesn't leave anybody out. God's love doesn't turn its back on anybody for anything. Are you with me? And when we're not feeling love, we've turned our back. When we're not feeling love, we're not in an all-inclusive embrace. Maybe it's your own self you're not embracing. And that's why you can't feel the love. Maybe it's your own self you're not even open to, let alone somebody else. But when your openness exemplifies my all-inclusive embrace, and isn't that what we feel? Isn't that what we feel when we're loved? When you're loved and really loved, you can feel light loving you through somebody. Yes? You can sense that, and you're so grateful for it. Sometimes you can feel like somebody just showed up like a little angel right at that moment, and you know it. Yes? You know it. Forgive me if you're bored with this story, because I know I've told it several times. But it just strikes me at how basic love is and how many opportunities we have to do it and don't necessarily take them, and how often we are loved. This was years ago. I remember exactly where it was. It was about this time of the year. So I was in finals, my first quarter at UCLA's graduate school in business. This was back in 1980. And at that time, I was working full-time, I was going to school full-time, and I was broke. I mean, I didn't have any money. I literally had $5 that day. I was new to the system, and I hadn't figured out how early you had to apply for a parking pass. So by the time I wanted to, they were gone. And UCLA is in an extremely expensive neighborhood around Bel Air, literally across the street from Bel Air, and you cannot park, like on the streets there. So I had a choice to make between eating and parking. I had $5. That was my choice, because it was going to take $5 to park. So I decided I'll eat later. I need to get in there for this exam. And there's a guy at the kiosk, old black man, African-American guy. Never seen him before. Never saw him before, never saw him since. And he was slow. He was slow. He was slow like only a black man, old black man, could be slow. Okay, now this was 30-something years ago. So this guy today would have been like 100, aware of 100. So I'm talking like that, like my dad kind of character, slow. And I'm impatient. I'm just like, and he's just looking at me, and he's talking. You go to school here? Yes, sir, I do. As a matter of fact, I got an exam. Chop. Let's make this thing happen. And he's just looking on, and I'm thinking, what are you doing? And he just keeps talking to me. And I'm trying to be kind, because I was taught, you be nice to your elders. But I'm like, come on, dude, come on. And, there was no self-service or anything back then. So he sticks the little sticker inside my windshield. And I go to give him the $5. And he pushes my hand back in. And he says, no, this one's on Daddy. Get yourself some lunch. Those were his exact words. And then I was so jarred by it. And he said, you do good in there, because I believe in you. And it brought me to tears. Never saw him before, never saw him since. I'm not exactly sure he existed. Do you know what I mean? Do you ever have those experiences? Where I'm really not, it was so unusual. I mean, like for UCLA, come on, really? But there was that sense that I had an opportunity there that he would have never had. It wasn't but $5. It wasn't but $5. But I am telling you now that that $5 in that moment and that affirmation on his part for me, are you with me? That was the face of God. That was the face of God talking to me. You have no idea how often you're the face of God for somebody. For something that you didn't even know, didn't even remember. Okay? I don't know what that guy's practice was, but I know he was a disciple. It didn't matter his background. It doesn't matter where he comes from. It's not about a conversion to a particular religion. This is about a certain place of heart. Disciples of love and peace. And here's how Spirit defines peace. And I'm going to do this as a double one. It says, peace is where your surrender seeks my omnipresent oneness. Peace is where your surrender seeks my omnipresent oneness. But let me give you the definition of surrender that'll make this so sweet. It says surrender is where your release resides in my possibility. Surrender is where your release resides in my possibility. And then it defines, it says in possibility there, it said to me in parentheses, the infinite combination of decisions that are part of the divine plan. When your release can rest in a sense of possibility that there are an infinite number of combinations in the divine plan, we think that surrender is defeat. Surrender is not defeat. We think of surrender as when there's no more hope. It's the other way around. Surrender isn't when there's no more hope. Surrender is when you finally get some hope. Surrender is when you finally make it to a place of release where you understand that there's so much more than what meets the eye, and I don't have to keep struggling here. I don't have to keep fighting here. And if you can find that place of surrender where you're not struggling anymore, where you're not fighting anymore, where you realize there's an infinite number of possibilities in the way that things can happen, and when you let that surrender seek out God's oneness, oh! That oneness that's everywhere. See, that's when you know peace. You don't know peace when it all works out. You might be happy then, but peace is in the midnight hour when it hadn't turned around yet, when it's still not looking pretty on the outside. But there's something within you that knows, and it knows that there's something else, something that you're missing, something that you can't see, something that you can't explain, something that you can't know, something that you can't time, but it's there. And you are not alone. It's the peace that passes all human understanding. And it's out of this place of peace that love comes. Let me be very explicit here. Our lack of peace is not because of what has happened. Our lack of peace comes because we won't release it. Not because of what has happened, but we keep hanging on to it, thinking that because this thing happened, it is now cut off my good, or all these other things that could have happened. We get stuck in a lack of possibility consciousness. We get stuck in thinking that it's only this way. And it can only be this way. And if it isn't this way, then it's no way. That's when we don't have peace. But when you open up wide, you know there's another way. And it may not always look pretty. And it may not always look nice. But I know that the mark of the moral universe is long, and it bends towards justice. I know it takes a lot to release in this political environment. And I'm not saying do nothing. What I am saying, to surrender to the idea that there's an infinite combination of decisions. I've often wondered what it was going to take for the United States to wake up in terms of our foreign policy and the way we act around the world. I've often wondered, because the days of the bully are limited. The bully can only be a bully for so long before people just get tired, okay? And like the UN, they're getting tired. Folks are getting tired of us right now. Now, I love America. I'm an American. And I also know that God has a way of working things out in ways that I can't see, that aren't punitive, but a way where everybody can get healed. And all I am telling you is, as sure as I am standing here, there's a healing that's going on. Now, it may not look the way we all want it to look, but there's a healing going on. Stay in love. Be peace. Be it. Be it. I'm not trying to be all scary, hell and brimstone on Christmas. But talking about Jesus, Jesus the Jew, Jesus that grew up not too far from Jerusalem, that area of the world right now that we messing with, okay? We got to be peace. We really all have to think peace, be peace, whether it's global affairs or whether it's in your own home. Now, I know over the next week, people are going to be seeing friends and family and all of the rest of that. Be peace. Okay, be love. Treat everybody like they are an extension of you. Not just how you would like them to treat you, but like there's no otherness. Are you with me? Be peace. Don't walk in the door with chips on your shoulder. Don't walk in the door with a whole bunch of old stuff about who did what to whom when. Not even you. Okay. Walk in with a new sense of freshness. Walk in with a new sense of possibility. Because my God is a redemptive God. My God is a God that will use anything and everything for the highest good. So don't judge it. Don't judge people's lots or what they did. You don't have a right to look down your nose at anybody. And if anybody's looking at you down their nose, you just keep looking up to God. You don't have to look up their nose. Lift up your eyes to the hills, because that's from the place that your help comes from. Yes? Be a disciple. The discipline. The repeatedness. Discipline's not a bad word. It just means discipleship. The repeated. Will you keep being open? Will you keep surrendering? Will you keep showing up? Will you keep seeing the divine possibilities? Will you keep sharing what you have? Will you keep knowing that there's something more than what meets the eye? Jesus told us, greater things will you do. Greater things will you do. So with all of your praising and worshiping and everything that you do, let it call you up. Let it call you up. Don't just, ooh, Jesus. Ooh, Jesus. No, his disciples were right by him, doing everything he did. Ooh, Martin Luther King. That's right around the corner. Ooh, 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 ooh. No. Exemplify. You honor by following in the footsteps. Yes? Let us pray.